Bids are due this week for Amazon's new headquarters. The company announced in September it plans on building a second headquarters in another city. And what's followed is an all-out bidding war for HQ2, with cities across the U.S. and Canada doing whatever they can to try and lure the tech giant. But what chance does Canada really have? Joining us now is Richard Florida. He's a professor at the University of Toronto and author of the book, The New Urban Crisis. Welcome back to Your Morning.
It's great to be here.
All right, first of all, what kind of city is Amazon looking for?
Well, I think it's actually a really short list. They need a great city with a great university, big enough to absorb as many as 50,000 jobs. So that means 50,000 new jobs and 50,000 people may be moving to that city. They need a place that's open to immigration, and they need a place with a great global airport. I think that really narrows the set to about 10 cities or metropolitan areas across the U.S. and Canada.
All right, what effect does it have to the winning city? What will they see come to their city as a result of winning the bid?
Well, you know, there's good news, bad news there. The good news is you get a major Amazon investment, billions of dollars. You get to say, we won, yay, and 50,000 jobs, and many of them very high-paying, you know, six-figure jobs. The downside is you then have a competition in your labor market for all this talent, and you've got to absorb 50,000 households. In a place like Toronto, where there's already scant inventory of homes and condos, but even more important, apartments, you know, young people trying out to get an apartment down here, it's really difficult. Yeah. So there's a pro and a con.
Yeah, definitely. Should cities be falling all over themselves trying to win Amazon's bid? Because we see these bids to lure these companies, they're almost like Olympic bids now.
No. And I actually think Toronto's playing this pretty smartly. I actually think Toronto's in good shape. I put it in my top three. I think that Washington, D.C., Bezos already has a $23 million home there. Chicago is another place if he wants to cut costs because housing is less expensive. Toronto, and then I think New York and the other East Coast cities, Philadelphia, Boston, and a few others. But I don't think we should be big on incentives. And I think the idea, at least that I hear from folks around this, is that what they'd like to do is put in place a package, you know, making sure the talent is here, making sure they have the skilled labor, the managers, the techies, making sure they have a good site for the Amazon HQ, but not a lot of cash on the barrel. I think it's a big mistake to put tax and financial incentives on the barrel.
We talked earlier about the possibility of other Canadian cities being contenders in this race. So who else in Canada might be, other than Toronto, might be a good city to bid? And sort of what sellables do they have to Amazon?
Well, a couple of things we know. A fellow from Amazon last week at a conference said, this is not going in the Northwest. He said that. So he said this publicly. We have a headquarters in Seattle. Not everyone wants to be in Seattle in the Northwest. This is coming east. So I think that tells us something, whether he was telling the truth or not, but he said it. Second thing, I think the Detroit and Windsor bid is real. I was just in Detroit this weekend. I mean, what they've done in that downtown, and Dan Gilbert, their billionaire investors leading it. Windsor gives them a place, you know, if the U.S. has these immigration restrictions with Trump and people can't get in. And then I think Toronto, I actually think, you know, not just because I live here, I think Toronto's in the strongest shape. We know, and we know that Amazon has already picked Toronto, right? There are two places that Amazon in the past picked for HQ2, Boston and Toronto, and one person in Amazon, the director of consumer, said, no, let's not put this in Canada. The U.S. market is bigger, so they've already had their eyes on us.
The Detroit bid is interesting as well because it also offers them some good PR.
Yeah, and I think really the question is, if you're Jeff Bezos, I think you have three choices. Go to Detroit and say, you know, Trump says I want to make America great again. He doesn't like Trump. I'm going to make America great again by rebuilding its Rust Belt city. Put it in Washington, D.C., where 50,000 jobs say, hey, look, I'm in Washington,
D.C. Right under his
D.C.
nose, this is how powerful we are.
And, you know, they have issues with antitrust and anti-monopoly. So that's a lot of goodwill. Or say to Trump and the U.S., we've looked at 50 U.S. cities. We did our due diligence, and when we looked at airport, healthcare, education, quality of urban living, we picked Toronto. So I think those are three different options, Detroit, D.C., or Toronto. They could go.
Does Amazon want to work with cities? Are they there to sort of, you know, help build up the infrastructure, or is this really about just what's best for them?
They better. I was meeting with one congressperson from Silicon Valley, you know, the high-tech hotbed, and he said the pitchforks are out for these guys. Facebook, Uber, now banned from London, the issues with Airbnb, now Amazon and Google being seen as antitrust, anti-monopoly. I've been writing about this, and I think it's really in Amazon's interest not to extract from cities, but to say, look, we're a partner in building your city. We want to invest in your city. We want to invest in making your city stronger. I think that's the way they should go.
Buy a lot of goodwill.
Yeah, I would hope, and I think buying goodwill is not only good for the city, I think it's better. You know, Bezos is the richest man in the world. On a given day, it's him or Gates. Amazon's the most fully capitalized company, highest market cap. It's smart for them to build brand by building a better city.
Good to have you here, and I'm excited to see what these bids look like as they come out this week.
Yeah, they'll be out this week, and we should know in a few months.
All right. Thanks for coming back.
It's great to be here.